In this episode, I'm joined by Kailin, who went from nurse to pro dancer performing live at Madison Square Garden. She's going to give you all the juicy insights to her identity transformation and talk about how she's currently navigating letting herself have it all. You ready? Let's do it. Hello, you are listening to the Love Your Life as a Performer podcast. I'm Kelly Youngman, and I am the life coach for performers. I help actors, singers, and dancers love themselves and their lives way more. So keep listening to learn how you can love your life both on and off the stage. Hello, and welcome back to the Love Your Life as a Performer podcast. I am so excited because today I have Miss Kailin joining me. She is currently in the Paradigm. This is her third round, and we're so excited to share her story with you all. Welcome, Kailin.
Hello. Thank you.
Please tell the people a little bit about yourself.
Yes, glorious. So happy to be here this morning. My name is Kailin, as Kelly said. I am a professional dancer here in New York City. I am also a registered nurse, and I am a fitness coach.
We love. And I feel like it's been so fun, especially in the Paradigm, because so much of that container is about really letting yourself have it all and like holding space for all these different parts of your identity and all of these passions that are a huge part of what make you uniquely Kailin. Tell me, what really drew you to the Paradigm, and how did you know you were ready to start this work together?
Love that. So you actually came to speak to us when I was in ProSem. And I have already been very into the world of personal development, the world of self-growth, like for years. So there's this kind of like language in self-growth, in personal growth, where you're just speaking about bigger things. Like it doesn't have to be so finite. The goals don't have to be so small. Like there is this other kind of world you can create for yourself. And so I was already very into that. And then when you came to speak, I just understood what you were saying. Like I automatically had like this click with you and your energy and your vibe. That's the thing too, is like I'm very into like the energy we bring into a room is a real thing. Like you can tell when someone walks into a room and they have like a stinky energy and you're like, oh, they just like kind of brought the vibe down, right? Like people have said that, or your energy is contagious or infectious. So there is this level of, we do have an energy about us. And so I connected with yours, and you started talking about all these like simple but like grand things. And I was like, oh yeah, I need to connect with her. So when we jumped on our launch call of like what the Paradigm is and like making space for multiple huge goals, big things in life, it was just a step that I knew I needed to take. So even though I didn't know, and we'll get into this, but like all of the hows of my goal, right? Like, how do I do this? When? I've gotten to trusting my intuition, my knowing. And I knew like, sometimes you can only see the step right in front of you, and that's the step you need to take. And sure enough, like the Paradigm was that step. I was like, I just know that that's a yes. And now all these things have like blossomed from that choice.
Oh my gosh, I just got chills because I think that's like the scariest thing for anyone to move forward, right? It's like, wait a second, but there's all this uncertainty. And as we've discovered, as we continue to do this deepening of this work, it's like, we actually don't need to know the how. All we need to know is where we're going. And if that's enough, if we let that be enough, right, the next step will keep showing up for us.
Yeah.
I feel like I also want to say this, Kailin, because you've done 3 rounds of the Paradigm. And can you just speak a little bit, and we're going to get into like the specifics of what's been created, but can you just talk to like, how is it possible that you could do 3 rounds and like new things could still be happening, just for someone who's like never done maybe a 6-month container and like the idea of it feels a little bit foreign?
Yeah. So the reason I've done 3 rounds is because I can see my growth in each container, like how leveled up I got. And I just wasn't ready to be done leveling up. Like that's the most simple way that I could put it. That's coaching in general. Like when you come to coaching ready to be like open to receive, to absorb, you are going to get results. Like you are going to see change. And then once you're standing on that higher level, that higher platform, you're like, wait, there's even more. And you can like
Mm,
continue going higher. And it's just the more ceilings you break through, you realize the more there are to break through. And it's just an endless thing. Like I am a student of life. I am a student always. Like I'm always down to learn new things and different perspectives. And I think when you can really lean into that, it's like a no-brainer. Like, of course, you just keep going.
mm. So, Kaylin, what do you feel like was your biggest breakthrough? Like, what was the first sort of like leap in belief that you needed to make for your own journey? Maybe like thinking about in terms of the paradigm, like your first round. What were you working on at that point, if you can remember?
Oh, so good. So, and again, it's so funny to look back at my first round versus where I am now. Cause what, that's a year and a half, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So a year and a half ago, I was looking back at my notes from the very first round and just my thought process where I was at was I was struggling with believing in myself at all. Like I knew I could have these big, like grand goals, this gorgeous life, but it was always kind of out there. Like, yeah, one
Mm,
day I'm going to have all these things because they're humanly possible, right? Like I'm not the first one to invent this wheel of the goals that I want to have. And so I knew that it was like a yes from personal development. Yes, I can have that. But it was always far away. And you were like, well, why can't we have that today? And I was like, whoa, what do you mean? And it was so funny because I realized that brought to light that like my true belief wasn't actually there. Like, does that make sense? It was there, but I didn't believe I could have it now. And so believing in myself now, like even the phrase, like, I'm a professional dancer, that was so hard for me to believe. So it was the very basics, the very fundamentals. That's what the first round was for me. And I thought I had it together. I was like, no, we're good. And that's where being open comes in is like, again, these things come to life or come to light. And then you realize, oh, that's maybe something I can fine tune a little bit. I can tweak. And so I remembered I was really struggling to call myself a professional dancer because, and we can go into this now or later, but I've been a nurse for 7 years. It was never in my realm, in my consciousness to become a professional dancer. I just danced because I liked to do it. And so when I made that initial switch from nursing to like, oh no, I'm going pro dancer, it was so crazy to call myself a pro dancer because I was like, well, no, I'm a nurse. You know what I mean?
this is where I love coaching so much because so much of it is the identity piece, right? Of really, and I call it like created identity, deciding ahead of time who you would like to be. But like, especially in the paradigm, I feel like that is like such a huge part of it is like, no, you really get to just decide from this moment and every moment moving forward who you are deciding to be and embody that, right? But it's so funny to me, even hearing you say it now, it's like it wasn't even in my consciousness to like be a professional dancer, but it's like, it's who you are. It was always in your spirit. And I loved the way you just described like how sometimes we know these things, but it can feel so far away that we're almost like keeping it like as a dream, hope, wish without really seeing the gap between like bringing it from out there to right here, right now.
Yeah.
And I just love how you say that because I think, I mean, I even still have that with my next dream and my next, we always are going to have that gap. Like it's part of the process, but it's also then our work to step into it and to like really meet it there. So yeah, I remember that. Like you were struggling with so much love. I mean, we all do to like step into that identity. What do
Mhm.
you think like really helped you to realize that again, and I think this is a huge part of it too, that yes, you are a professional dancer. Like what helped you step into that belief, but then also know you didn't have to choose, like that
Mm.
it got to be both. What was that like for you?
Yeah, I think what we did is we really just worked on practicing the belief. Like beliefs, habits, they're all just continued choices over and over and over and over and over again. Thoughts, too, all of this. So you can change all of these, or you can think the same thing. Like this is all optional. That's one thing that I love that I learned is that like every single thought is optional. You can have a thought, you can have a belief. And I think sometimes we just stop there and we're like, well, that's what I believe. Can't change it. And you're like, well, no, actually, do I still believe that? Or do I still want to think that? Is that thought helpful to me? Is that serving me in the direction that I'm trying to go? Yes or no? And you can be very
Mm.
neutral about it. And you can be very like, okay, I see that that's the original thought I had. Do I still want to continue on with it? And so we just reshaped my beliefs. Like, of course, you do the work, you do the training. I trained here professionally in a professional program in New York, right? Like, I put in the hours and the steps to do it. And then I just had to re solidify my new belief that, like, of course, I'm a professional dancer. Of course, I'm good at dance. Like, you know what I mean? So I forgot the second half of your question, but we reshaped my beliefs.
Yeah. The second part of the question, and honestly, Kaylin, that's so fucking good because, again, and I'm curious to know, I feel like this is an answer that I know, but like, what was preventing you from just believing that already, though?
I don't know. It's just so interesting to see what our brains do. Like I was just so certain that I was a nurse because I had done it for X amount of years, but I had never done the pro dance thing. And I think it was like that thought process of like results before belief is what I used to think. Like
Mm,
if I've done it, okay, then I can believe it. Like if I already got the goal, okay, then yeah, see, I know I could do it. Ooh, in retrospect.
mm,
But it's something we trained on is the belief first, which then allows you to get the goal. And so I
mm,
think, I don't know, it was just the conditioning that I had that, like, well, I've never done this before. So how can I say that that's what I am?
mm, mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then, Kaylin, the second part of the question was like, what did it look like to not only step into belief that you were a professional dancer, but also that you didn't have to choose between nursing and performing?
So
How
good.
has that evolved?
We did so much work on this. So again, a lot of these shifts are like subtle shifts and they make such a big difference. Because I noticed I was still trying to have myself choose, well, now if I'm a pro dancer, how can I be a nurse, right? Like all eggs in one basket, I can only be one thing. But that's just not true. And that's also not what I wanted. I wanted to be all things. And allowing myself that permission to do all things is like something we worked really hard on. And I think because it's not a societal norm to have multiple careers at the same time, like people think it needs to be do this for 5 years before you can make a move. You have to do this way, stay in your lane before you can ever think about branching out and doing something else. Like it's just not conventional, which is unfortunate because I think it should be more conventional these days. But I just noticed that that was my conditioned thought pattern of like, well, if I'm a pro dancer now, then do I have to leave nursing? Or people would ask me like, oh, so you're done with nursing? And I was like, well, no, like I love being a nurse and I'm still doing it. So now I have a triple career, which is fitness coaching, dancing, and nursing. And
Mm-hmm.
we introduced this idea of like, not having to take off one hat and put on another. Like I am in the world of Kailin. I save lives, I dance, I change lives through fitness, through all of these things, right? And it's just like who I am. And so today I go to the hospital and I do that as a nurse. Today I go to dance and I do that as a dancer. Today I get on a call and I'm coaching a client. You know what I mean? So
Yes.
it's just realizing that we have the capacity to do literally whatever we want.
Yes. Oh, I love that so much. We call that like the self concept container, that it gets to hold all of these things, but we're not like switching who we're being in any given scenario, right? We just have a belief system that holds all of it so that we're not feeling like you said. I love that example. Like we're not taking off all these different hats and trying to shape shift day to day, moment to moment. It's like, no, I'm just Kailin and I'm all of these things. Yes, badass.
That's badass. My mug, everyone.
Kaylin has a beautiful mug that she just picked up, but so good. So, Kaylin, fast forward from when you started the paradigm to the end of our second container when you like manifested this crazy cool opportunity. Tell us a little bit about that journey. And if you remember the coaching, because there was like, I feel like one call right before that happened that kind of clicked everything into place for you.
I feel like there's actually been a lot of things that have happened. Are we talking about MSG?
Yeah.
Okay.
But actually, you were right because I did skip a whole bunch of things. But give the people a little snippet. No. But give everyone a little sampler of what started happening throughout that year leading up to MSG.
Well, I was like, I don't even know honestly where to start. But so the things that started happening is I started getting on board with my decisions. This is the big one. Is I noticed I was being wishy-washy, right? Like one foot in, one foot out. I'm kind of this, I'm kind of that. I don't know. Do I know? Just like being uncertain. And I love Kelly because she literally is like, yeah, we need to nip that. She's like, dude, decide and then have your back. Like you can make this decision and whatever it is, it's okay. Like we are confident, capable human beings. Well, beings having a human experience. And like it's okay. Just don't be like half in, half out. Oh, don't half ass it. Use your whole ass. I
Yes.
love that. That's like the best. But I think that in itself, that freedom to make the choice, knowing it's never going to be wrong because I trust myself, because whatever path that leads me down, it's either the correct path or I'll course correct. Like just having that trust in my decision making allowed me to then make these decisions more clearly, which then led me to take more clear actions, which then like made the things come true. You know what I mean? So having my own back through my decisions, having my own back through my emotions was a huge one. This is still me giving the little sprinkler of the recap throughout the years. I like, again, you're never wrong. Like I had this thing about like wrongness. I would make myself wrong if I were to feel a certain way or do a certain thing or not do a certain thing or not feel a certain way. And I think one thing, Kelly, that you and I worked on so much was that there's just no wrongness. Like if you have a feeling that comes up and the feeling is stress or the feeling is sadness or anger, like feel that. You are allowed to sit down and be like, dang, I am pissed off. Like I'm gonna rage right now. And just like having your back through that rage, letting it move through your body, it'll move through so much faster than if we were to ignore it or stuff it down or put it aside and then never look at it again until it bottles up and comes out. Like being okay to do those things means I moved through them faster. And then I got out on the other side and I was like, okay, now how do I want to feel? Or like, what's the next step I want to take? Or who do I want to be now? Like, thank you for holding space, being safe to acknowledge everything that I felt. And now, okay, where do we want to go from here? Like, that is huge. Okay. So that's a sprinkling of like, just like a couple boulders that have been moved throughout my time in the paradigm. But then leading up to Madison Square Garden. So I danced at MSG for a hip hop artist, sold out show. It was 20,000 people. Ooh, it was so good. And that was like a huge goal of mine. And I felt so at home on that stage. Oh, it was literally the best. So that was a huge thing. What did you ask me? I'm like getting off on all these things.
Well, I was saying, like, what was the journey leading up to that? And I loved that you shared those more internal wins and shifts because they are fucking boulders. And like, we don't even realize, like, I mean, at least when I look back and I started my work, like doing my own healing, I didn't realize at the time that there was that room to grow because I also like perceived myself as someone who was positive, had been doing the work, right? But then there's just like this deeper level of knowing yourself and having your own back and supporting yourself that once you do that work, you're like, oh, this is a totally different life. And yeah, I just don't know how else to say it, but like that once you really start engaging with these processes, you're like, oh, I can move so much quicker through it. And that opens up space for all these external shifts to happen once you've done the internal work.
Mm-hmm.
But I was even thinking about like, even just when you like made it into the hip hop company, like that was such a huge step for you. Like being in that crew and then getting to perform at MSG, like that was the external evidence, the result of the belief you had created months before, right? And so I feel like that was happening even before MSG. But I remember at the end of your second container, we had a coaching call, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, but we really just went in on like, no, this is who you are. What does it look like to bring those distant dreams into the present tense?
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like we had a call where you really were like, oh no, yeah, I'm going to be on tour. I'm going to perform at like crazy big places, stadiums all over the country. And then literally it was like, oh shit, this came out of air quote nowhere because you like weren't worrying about trying to get there. It clicked and you knew that it was happening.
Yes. Yes. No, I do remember that call. And it was actually like, wasn't it like a week before we
Mm-hmm.
booked MSG? So literally just within like a week. But it was true. I was coming to these goals with such certainty and clarity and alignment that like, oh, this is absolutely what I'm doing. No question about it. Wasn't wishy-washy energy. It was very much like, I am going to be on tour. Like I am going to be dancing on these stages that are huge. And I think just playing in that possibility and that belief of this is what I'm claiming, I'm putting it out there, I'm asking for it, I'm ready to receive it. Like, and then just not worrying about the how. Like, just, oh, that's what it's going to be. And then it directly came and like hit me in the face. It was like,
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah. Okay. So good, Kailin. Can you also talk about like, because going into this third container, you had a very specific personal goal that you wanted to work on. Can you speak to that? And then I want to circle back to how that all also expanded how you were, I don't know, also up leveling investment in yourself and then like broadening what you were ready to claim as a performer too. Do you need me to remind you what it was?
Yeah.
Well, I feel like coming into the third container, you also really wanted to like expand the possibilities for a relationship and dating. And I feel like I just want to say that out loud because again, I think when people hear the paradigm, maybe they don't know immediately that like we're working on being whole ass people with
Right.
like your dream life.
Mm-hmm.
Like this is where it's a little bit different from momentum, where momentum, we're like doing that foundational work of like, okay, I can be a performer. I can love auditions. I can love my experience in the industry. But in the paradigm, we really are expanding. What does it look like to have personal, professional, financial goals, but this bigger vision for your life and the impact you want to have and how you want to do that with who? So many of my clients have manifested really amazing relationships. And Yeah, I just think it's fun that that was also part of your goal, your desires for this third round.
Yes. Yes. And you're right. Like this is a container that is about all of life. Like you can be firing on so many cylinders, but again, there's more to than just your career. Like we know that, right? There's more to life than just your career. And we should be loving our careers, right? Like amazing. And like you said, there's also like financial goals, there's also personal goals, maybe some fitness goals, maybe some relationship goals. There's all these things that make life this whole round little pizza pie that like all of the slices matter. And so, yes, one of my goals for this round was being intentional with the relationships that I'm building, creating, and calling in. So I was aiming more of like a romantic situation for my relationships because I truly think that you should have a partner in life who like brings out the best in you and who wants to grow alongside of you. Like this will go into my feminist rant here if I'm not careful in a minute. But I feel like as women we've been conditioned to like just accept whatever and like oh as soon as we get attention like yeah, ooh, great. And like the goal, quote unquote, for us should be to settle down, marry, start a family, have kids, and then like forget about everything that you ever wanted. And maybe some of that model is still a little old fashioned. Like I think we're evolving nowadays to where it's not so much that, but it's subtly still there. And I don't want to do that. Like I want to have my ambitious career goals and I want to have such a supportive partner who like comes alongside me and does that and who's into all this growth and who's into like all of these things so that we can make life just as juicy and fun as possible. So that was like an intentional thing that I wanted to create, hence one of my goals for this container.
Yeah. And like for anyone listening, right? It's building belief before the result, even for your relationships. Like it's so easy to think like, oh my gosh, online dating, no one's out there, all the things versus going to the space where you're like, no, like I know this person exists. There are people out there in the universe and like my person is there.
Mm-hmm.
Like manifesting and trusting and believing in that result as well. I just think a lot of performers unintentionally put it to the wayside. Not even just performers, but humans, right? Like, oh, I'll start thinking about that once I have my career in place or once I'm financially stable, then I'll think about it. Whereas those things don't have to come in any set order. We're allowed to just hold space for them, trusting that they're going to come into our reality when we're ready, when the timing is right, but like also choosing to be ready.
Yes. That part, ooh, that's a huge part. The choosing to be ready as well. Because I feel like that kind of floated out of my thoughts for like years. Like, I've been single for a minute, and that's okay. Like, I've been having a blast. It's so much fun. And I caught myself having certain moments of like those same thoughts. Like, is there anyone out there? Like, like who are they ever going to come? But then I realized I wasn't actually open to like receiving anyone. Like I was just doing my own thing. It was just off in again in the out there land.
Yeah.
And I think this round was more intentionally bringing in no, it can be right here, right now land. It can be in my present world while I'm going after all these things. Because another common thing I hear too is, well, you're too busy right now. That's why no one's coming. And I was like, I
Mm.
don't plan on ever not being busy. Not for like this star of like badge of busyness, but like just the juiciness, like I said, that I want to create in life. Like I'm going to be out here, until I'm 100. So my person's going to have to get on board with me. Like I'm never going to not be busy. So they're going to have to come and meet me where I'm at. And that's totally fine. And that's not a large request. You know what I mean? So
Yes.
being open to like, no, it can happen now, no matter what the circumstances are.
So good. So
Mhm.
good. Okay, Kaylin, so you're in this like really juicy scenario right now with careers and all the things. Tell us a little bit about how that's been unfolding as of late.
Okay. So as of late, I have decided to quit my full-time nursing job, LOL. And I am what I said is like going hardcore into dance. Like I am about to be bi-coastal, so living in New York and LA, so I can live out all my juicy dance dreams. Um, I'm still going to be nursing. It's just less hours. It's like part-time nursing. So that again, I have more time on my schedule to be devoting to dance and to be focusing on dance. I have also started my own fitness coaching business. So I used to work for a fitness company, all love to them. They were great. They taught me everything I know. And now I've gone out on my own and kind of made coaching exactly how I want it. Like exactly how it fits my schedule, how it benefits the clients and me, right? So I have just been able to kind of like create this new life schedule with 3 careers that feels so good to me and that feels so like invigorating rather than draining.
Mm.
And it's just been so cool to kind of like piece these things together and like literally just make these moves based on the next right action. Like the next thing that felt correct is what I did. Like I did not have a specific nursing job lined up when I quit my full-time job. I was like, I'm quitting. This is no longer a fuck yes. I'm quitting. And now, having been in coaching for so long, I can trust myself in my decisions, right? So I can know that this is not, a silly decision or an unthought out decision. It's a decision that I'm very confident in. And I know I'm going to get another job. And then like a couple days later I did. So I got my per diem, my part-time nursing job. And like again, that was just a testament to trusting myself. Like when I know something is not correct, I can take action based on that. When I know something is correct, I can take action based on that.
Mm. Yeah. And correct for you in this moment, right? I feel like two things jumped out at me, Kailin, is like one, I remember in your second container, or even the first and second container, we were really looking at how do we make your fitness coaching such a fuck yes for you that it fits in your life and like kind of deconstructing, letting go of all the other ways you had done it. Right. Because again, when we learn one way, we're like, oh, this is how it's supposed to go. And you're like, wait a second. If I get to make this any way that I would love, that best serves my clients and me, it just opened this whole doorway. I totally forgot about that whole part of the process, but that is part of the paradigm. We look at how do you bring in and bring together all the things that you love to have a solid offer where people could pay you literal thousands of dollars, right? Like we actually do that work.
Yeah.
And I love that when it came to finding this next iteration of what nursing looks like in this chapter, we really did a lot of work to say, what would you love? Right? Because it's so easy to think, well, if I'm going from full time to part time, I'm going to be making less money. Right? It's so easy to say, well, like then I'm going to have to be cutting back or like to feel like it's the air quote loss versus like seeing the spaciousness that's being created and how your income could stay the same or more, even with different circumstances. Mm-hmm. So I feel like part of what I really just like thought was so magic, Kailin, is that when you made this shift, right, you held space for like, what if it could be even better than I imagined? And it happened quickly. It happened so freaking quick. It was like days. I don't know. Tell me a little bit about, because again, I feel like it's been so fucking cool to watch how you opened up space for this per diem job, right, on the East Coast. And then it kind of just like was like, oh, wait, I'm going out to LA. Like, tell people a little bit about that journey.
Yeah. So I said exactly just to recap what you said, like my knee jerk thought was like, oh, I'm quitting full time. So that means I might make less money. And all these thoughts of like constriction, fear, lack kind of started to come in. But now that I'm so well coached, I can pause and look at that thought and be like, okay, but is that true? Or is that how I want to feel? Do I want to feel constricted? Are opportunities going to come to me if I'm constricted? No. So let's open up a little bit about it and let's create that spaciousness. And I said on our call, I was like, if this is something that I would love to happen, I want to quit full time. I want to work per diem and I want to make triple my income. Like, I was like, I want to work less and make more.
Yeah.
And you were like, cool, great. And I just want to say this too. That's one thing I love about this program and you, Kelly. It's just like, I can say things and be so well received. Like, I
Mm.
can say these things and it's a safe space to do so. Like, I think you need people in your life like that. You need programs, people, friends, like hang out in groups where people talk like this, because it shows you that, of course, it's possible. Like, when you're in conversations that are happening at a higher level, you can realize that, wow, my dreams actually aren't that far away. Like, these are things that can be done. And so when I said that and you were like, okay, great. And I was like, okay, cool. Now let's just figure out like what to do. And so, yeah, a couple days later, I got my per diem job here in New York. It's also on a new unit that I will love. Like, my nursing brain is going to be so fulfilled by this per diem work. I'm so excited about it. And now I have opportunities rolling in for per diem jobs in LA. So per diem, my hours are still going to be less than full time. And I would be making already the same amount as full time with just a day or two a week from these two per diem jobs, right?
Mm.
And then with the relationship that I've built around money now, which this is another big boulder that we worked through in the paradigm, is I'm friends with money. We're homies, right? Like, she's cute, I'm cute, we're friends. And so knowing that like money, my income doesn't just have to come from nursing, right? So now I've created space for money to come from me booking dance, which is what I want to do. Like, booking tour, booking stage work, booking all of these gigs. That can come, no problem. Now I also have space to coach more of my clients without being overwhelmed, without being, hold on, I'm busy, without being like kind of a little stressed, right? So money from fitness coaching comes in. Like, money can come from anywhere if you are open to it. And so just because I'm going down on my full-time hours as a nurse doesn't really mean anything. It doesn't mean that, well, I've just slashed my income. Like, no, absolutely not. I've actually made space to open up for more income.
Yeah. And literally that same week, you signed another fitness client.
Yeah. So funny. Yes, I did. I did.
So it's just been so fun to watch. Again, when you have a belief system that holds all of these things, it can exist because we can only receive what we believe is available that aligns with who we're being and that matches the level of awareness or consciousness that we have to who and what we can be, which is anything.
Yes.
So good. Kailin, I'm noticing that we're at time. Is there any last little nuggets that you want to share, or any last things that maybe you came to the call with that you want people to know?
There are so many things I want people to know.
I know. I feel like all of these episodes I've been doing with guests could be literally 3 hours and they would be so juicy.
We could literally write a book. And I think it would be a great one. You know what I mean? But no, I just think the importance of this work truly does change your life. Like, if that's what you're going for, if you're going for like, hey, I need a life change, this allows you to change your life in any capacity that you want. Like, getting into this type of work, like into personal development, into expanding your thinking, expanding what you think is possible. It just changes the way you show up. It changes the way you meet every single situation, not just in your careers, but like when I walk out into the street, like when I walk into a room and you meet me, like this all kind of just gets boiled down into my identity, my being. And it's so worth it to do. And that's why I keep doing it. That's why I do things like this over and over and over again, because you just get to build the life that you want to have. Like, there are no rules. No one has a blueprint for the game of life. Nobody. You just get to do. This was a quote that I found in our previous notes that was like, There are no rules. It's only what lights you up and what you choose to do with it.
Mm.
And I was like, you just get to follow your fuck yes. You just get to do what you want
Yeah.
and like make a good impact along the way. That's all.
Yes. And I feel like one other thing we didn't mention is that you've invested in all these other dance things as well. And I feel like because you've worked on your relationship with money, because you've trusted yourself, all these things kind of fit together and have allowed you to expand exponentially while investing in yourself, your mind, your well-being, but also like all these other training opportunities too.
Yeah. So, and that's one thing that I will touch on just really quickly. Like I've now invested 15K with you, right? And I've now invested like 4K to do this training program with like this huge choreographer. And I like my investments are just bigger. Like I'm playing on a bigger field because I'm thinking bigger, I'm doing bigger. But doing these things then allows me to open up that next step and allows me to then book that thing that I want to do because I did this, right? Like I did this piece and then walked along and now that's what opened the door to this other piece. So having like knowing that like I want to play on big financial fields because I have a lot of money. Like money is coming to me always. And so when I put this investment in, it's coming back around. When I put this out, it comes back to me, right? Like, and money comes from everywhere. And I've just like, it's been proven time and time again, which is why like, it's not to say that you're like, I think people get really scared about being careless with money. And it's not that. That's not even on the realm of consciousness. It's what are you doing with that money? Are you putting it towards something that is going to better you? Like that's going to help you. That's not being careless at all. Right. And so again, just like building this relationship with like how you perceive money and the limitations that you think you have around money. Right? Like these are all huge things that should be inspected so that you can create a different relationship, which creates a different reality. Because again, when you're coming at something from belief or inspired action, you're coming at something from worthiness, from knowing like, oh yeah, of course I can have that. Of course I can do that. When you're coming from that elevated state, that's going to make you take the action, which then makes you get the thing. So like, the thoughts become things is true. Like the beliefs become things is true because it's literally a step-by-step process. If you believe it, you're going to do it and then it's going to come. If you don't believe it, you're not going to do it. And then of course it's not going to come. Right. So like it is true that these things do translate.
So good. Kailin, thank you so much for making time to share this with everyone, to be here with me. Where can people find you and connect with you?
I'm most active on my good old Instagram at Kailin How is my last name. LOL. We were talking about how to pronounce that. Yes, it's How.
Haugh.
Correct. So you know it doesn't look like it. That's how you say it. Yes. So that's where you can connect with me, find me. I'm all over Instagram. Or if you see me in a class or you see me on the streets, you know what? Come say hi. Because again, I love doing this work. I love connecting with people who love to do this work. I'm just connecting with people in general.
So good. Thank you so much again. That's our episode. We will meet back here next week for another one. Bye. Hey, I want to invite you to get started because if this is blowing your mind, imagine the impact of when we actually work together. You get to love your life as an actor, singer, or dancer, even including auditions. And if that sounds amazing, come join us inside of Momentum. You get lifetime access to the Performers Plan, coaching, community, and more, and I will be supporting you the entire way. Go to kellyyoungmanwellness.com/momentum to join us now.